build these fears up. We create this monster in our minds.
Yeah.
So if I go and approach them, they might think this, they'll assume this. And we're building all this up in our mind. This is what's going to get projected onto us when you speak to somebody else. And we buy houses for £1. These options, and I'm thinking, I've got 10 quid, I can buy 10 houses. Show me how to buy 10 houses. I'm always trying to be better than the person look at in the mirror every day. You need to learn to be self-sufficient. You need to have a skill that you can monetize, where you don't have to go and work for somebody else if you don't want to.
They say the greatest glory in life is not falling, but in rising every time you get up. Today's guest is really experienced. I think everybody in the property world looks up to him, and we've got him in the studio. So welcome, Saj Hussain.
Thank you so much, Sean. Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Amazing to have you. You've come all the way from Birmingham. Thank you.
I was in London, actually. I was just saying to you earlier off camera, it's been a long time since I've been around here.
Yes.
And I just found one kebab shop that I haven't been to for a long time.
Beautiful. Was it worth it?
Oh, it was, absolutely.
What did you have?
It's a chicken doner. Well, I'm trying, just in case my PT's watching, man. I left food on the table, on the plate.
Keeping it clean.
Which I'm just trying to get over in my head, because I'm one of those, I have to clean the plate.
Yes.
And I have to leave a little bit of food just so I say, you know what, I'm not overdoing it.
You're good. You're good.
I haven't started on that topic.
Nice. So how much has London changed? Like, when was the last time you were here?
Well, actually, my wife's from North London. And we've still got relatives around here. In fact, I probably drove past a few, and if they find out I was around here, I didn't pop in, I might get into a little bit of trouble.
You're in trouble.
But I don't come to kind of this neck of the woods for that often. Often I'm here for an event or a meeting. It's usually central London or Heathrow or something, and that's it. So it just looks so different. Like there's trying to spot a piece of derelict land which hasn't been developed. Is like,
I'm telling you.
Like there's tower blocks everywhere and old buildings that I remember just being turned into nice apartments. And it's like everything's either getting developed or being developed.
Especially in London, the closer you are to central London, people are moving more and more out. But the more condensed, there's only so much you have in London, and any little space you can get, I'm telling you, somebody's going to be converting that. So you said you go to a lot of networking events and parties, functions, etc. How important is it to network?
For networking, for me, is just absolutely key. When I first started out in property, what I'd do, there were like probably a handful of networking events in the whole country at that time.
Yeah.
And one of the big ones was Berkshire Property Meet, and I used to try and get to that one regularly. And I'd got into an environment where people were very positive, and people would openly share. And prior to getting into property, about 17 years ago now, prior to that, I had run an IT business, my own IT business, and I think things are a little bit different now. But at that time, I tell you what, nobody shared.
No.
Nobody was being open about how they knew how to set up this server and get this computer to talk that piece of equipment. Nobody would tell you how to do that. Yeah. These days, some 12-year-old kid on YouTube will tell you how to do it.
Exactly.
And that was the value that we kind of held close. Oh, my knowledge is what's valuable. And when I came into the property space, people are just open about what they're doing, how they're doing things. And one person that I met quite early, very successful guy who actually now is a business partner. I'm talking like 17 years ago, I'd met him at that time. He was very helpful. At the time, I couldn't understand. I'd say to him, you're literally down the road from me. How come you're telling me all this stuff? Because, aren't you creating competition? He goes, look around you. There's enough houses for everybody.
Yeah.
There's enough. And for me at the time, that was just a big mindset shift.
Definitely.
And so networking became absolutely key part of what I do, my business. And the realization, actually, you never know who you're talking to and what that might turn into. I was at an event earlier today, and a few people just standing around on their own. I just go up and start chatting, and who do you are, what do you do, and I automatically go into this. I've just automatically programmed into trying to understand what somebody's doing, why they're here, what they're looking for, how can I help them, without realizing I just kind of default into that state now because it's so much ingrained in me.
Well, Saj, look, you're quite mature now, and
that's saying I'm old. That's fine.
No, I'm not. It's not that, but I'm just.
I'm okay with it.
But I'm just saying, like, when you approach somebody, they got that little respect barrier with you. What advice would you give somebody who's very young at the moment and thinking, oh, I'm in a room and there's some mature men here. They're not going to want to hear from this little kid or what I've got to say. They're probably earning a lot more money. I don't compare with them. How do I get in? Like, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I'd say it's just it's just having a conversation with people and having a few little things up your sleeve can help break the ice a little bit. So I just go up to them and saying, "Hey, I've been to this event before. Are you a regular attendee at this?" And tell me what is it that you're finding valuable if it's already partway through the event, or what's one thing you'd like to get from today. Just starting a conversation like that. That's even before I'm asking somebody's name.
Hmm.
And I just find it kind of just breaks the ice a little bit. And it's very easy to do. It doesn't matter, what place you're in, whether you're just starting out, you've got no experience, you're quite young. Even if you're fairly introverted, just learning those few basic skills means you've got a toolkit that you can use just to start a conversation.
Hmm.
And actually, most people are very nice.
Yes.
They'll talk to you. I could probably count on one hand in 17 years where someone was little bit obnoxious that I kind of started a conversation with. It's very rare. So I think when we have these fears, we build these fears up. We create this monster in our minds.
Yeah.
If I go and approach them, they might think this, they might say that, they'll assume this, and we're building all this up in our mind,
Hmm.
and this is our problem,
Yeah.
and we think this is what's gonna get projected onto us when you speak to somebody else. And the reality is, many times when that happens in our life, when we build up all this fear, and then we actually go and do it, we look back and it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
It's all
And
an
so it's
illusion.
just accepting that actually it's all comes down to fear. We were talking about this the other day. What
Yeah.
is fear? Fear is stepping into the unknown, and the unknown is uncomfortable. It's our brain tries to protect us. We don't want to venture into something that might be unsafe, and then that's what it is. And our growth is outside our comfort zone. We have to get outside our comfort zone.
100. So, what are you looking for when you're networking with people? When you're in a networking event, what gives you value? So, somebody watching saying, if I see someone like Saj or
Yeah.
another investor, how can I bring value to them for them to even want to entertain me?
So when I'm speaking to somebody else
Yeah.
at
So when
networking
you're
event,
when you're in a
what am I
room,
looking for?
no, when you're in a room and then
Yeah.
people approach you,
Okay.
what makes you feel this person's bringing some value to
Yeah.
you?
I guess to be honest, these days I tend to mostly focus on how can I help somebody else. I just default into that position. How can I serve this person what they're looking for? How can I add value to them? So I straight away go into questions that just pop out my mouth without even thinking. Is what would be a great outcome for you? I think if when we met, I might have said that to you.
You did,
Yeah.
yeah. Before I jumped into the
Yeah.
podcast and you asked me that question, I was
Yeah.
like, wow, you actually stunned me. I was like,
And
yeah.
often people don't know, but I'm
Yeah.
helping them think. So, what would be really valuable and useful for you,
Very good
and how
question.
can I help make that happen for you? And that's what I tend to think about. It's not that I'm looking for anything. And what I've found, and this is, I was having a conversation that somebody earlier today, and it was actually about content creation and monetization. And he goes, "I don't notice any monetization. You don't kind of sell anything as such." I says, "Because my view is you just give value, help as many people as you can, and you know what? It will come back." But sometimes we lack that belief
Yeah.
that how many of these seeds do I have to sow before my tree is going to appear and bear some fruit? And we just have to believe that actually, you know what, we just keep going, we just keep serving, and good things will happen. They'll come.
Yeah. Very wise words. And saying wise words, I recently heard you said you're a granddad.
Yes, recently, yeah,
How different is it being a granddad than being a father?
yeah.
That's interesting.
Um, Actually, but when I think back now, I have put my hands up and say I'm definitely not the best dad. I'm a great business person, but I'm not a brilliant dad. And I think that's because I've had an obsessive mindset about business. So my daughter now, who's had her first baby, my grandchild, when she was little, she's 30 now, coming on to 31. When she was little, there were times where I'd go out to work, she'd be asleep. I'd get back, she's asleep, and I'd barely see her. But I wasn't thinking about that because I was thinking, I'm doing this for the family. And that's what I kept telling myself at the time. Really, when I look back now, I think, yeah, I was providing for them, but there were things inside me that I wanted to satisfy. There was growth in me that I was trying to achieve, and I was on that obsessive track. And you can't turn the black that time. You only have one chance. When they've grown up, they've grown up. There's no second chance. So I probably wouldn't use the word regret because I think there's no benefit in that word. but there was a lot of learning for me and reflecting on actually how can I do things differently. And then when I've got 4 kids, and I've God's blessed me with 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. So one of them's still a teenager, the other 3 are adults, and so I've tried to make much more time
Hmm.
for her and have a stronger connection with her as she's as she's been growing up, which I didn't as much with the first 3. And so there's a huge learning. So now the question being, sort of, has a different granddaughter? I guess I'm trying to make more time now and enjoy that time. The amazing thing is when they start crying, just hand them back to their mom, and and you have a little play with them and say, "Here, mom, you can have them back now."
Or if they're like, "Here you go, that's
Yeah,
your job now."
that's it. Yeah.
I love that what you've just shared with me, and it's what I try to do as well. Also, just try to be present as
Mm,
possible, no matter how much work there is. I'll
yes.
always try and make time for my family, because I know one thing: you won't get that time again. My
Yes.
dad was always at the shop. He was always at the shop at 9 o'clock in the morning till 10:30 at
Yes.
night. If we wanted to see him, we'd go to his work. But sometimes, like, he's a great dad, probably like
Yes.
yourself, very good role model, always made sure there was food and water and clothes in the house. But sometimes we lack that little connection when you sit down more
Yes.
than 5 minutes. It's like, what do we talk about? Or
Yes.
he's set in his own way, and you just like
Mm,
slowly just like
yeah.
sneak out and go, yeah, yeah, I'm comfortable now in the next room, but I'm happy that dad's in this, next room as well. But yeah, I do believe it's very important to be present. And thank you for sharing some of them lessons. So Saj, sorry, go on,
I
carry
was
on.
just going to say, look, I'm being open to. I'm not. I'm saying I'm not perfect at many things.
Yeah,
Sometimes people see a part of you, a perspective of you online, and think this is amazing. They look up to you. I say, look, don't look up to me for everything. Just pick the things from me that you
yeah,
find useful and use those. I'm not a perfect human being. Far from it. I'm always trying to be better than the person I look at in the mirror every day. And what I try and instill in my kids now is really you need to learn to be self sufficient, i.e., you need to have a skill that's something that you can monetize, where you don't have to go and work for somebody else if you don't want to.
trade all your time for money. You need to create another sort of machine outside of you that keeps churning the
Absolutely.
wheel. Definitely, definitely. So I want to know, like, the man before the property developing. You mentioned a little bit about IT there in the background, etc. But even before that, have you? I know you're from Birmingham, but is that where you grew up?
Yes, I was born and bred in Birmingham. Been my whole life in Birmingham, and my father fell ill when I was quite young. I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, and his kidneys failed, so he was on kidney
Or
dialysis.
dialysis.
I'm talking a very long time ago. In fact, at that time, there's probably one other Asian family we knew, um, uh, who became a very good friend of my father's. Um, uh, Unfortunately, he passed away. A Sikh family. We were very close to them. They were the only other family we knew that were in similar situation. Unfortunately, now it's so prevalent. There's so many people in our community that have that. But at that time, he was the only person, within our community that happened to. I was quite young at the time, so my mom was actually effectively a full-time carer. She's looking after him. So we had an amazing, loving family, but we didn't have very much. So that was a challenge. It was just kind of like getting by. And by the time I was kind of 12, 13, I started understanding that we can't afford certain things. We can't have certain things because we haven't got the money to do them. We can't pay for them. And initially, I didn't really understand. And then it was, well, I'm not going to accept that we can't. It was a case of how can I? And I think it was just kind of forced upon me. Um, and I wasn't really very academic, although I've got 2 degrees. I've got more letters after my name than in my name. Put it that way. But a lot of that, it's I say that more in a joke rather than in a serious way, in the sense that I'm not an academic person. I've always done enough through school, college, university not to get thrown out, just enough to scrape through to the
Mhm.
next place, and get through. So I was always thinking, how can I make some money? How can I do something? And in the 80s, when I was at school, it was a very racist environment that we were in. There was a handful of Asian guys and some girls, and essentially we just stick together. It was just like one family at the time. And I started getting interested in computers at that time. If any people are old enough watching or listening to this now, it's like the Sinclair ZX81, the Commodore 64, those computers. Many people probably won't even know what on earth I'm talking about. They were the first computers, and it was like a month's salary to try and buy one of those. And I'd kind of um, the bare bones of it. I managed to persuade mom to buy me one of those computers. But at the time, what would happen? You'd get this box, and then you'd need a data input device. You need a screen to connect it to. You needed all these other things, otherwise nothing was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like having a car with no wheels. All right, I've got the car, but we ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. And I can't remember exactly how it happened now, but what I managed to end up doing is finding a place that used to sell the computer games, and I would sell them in school.
Right.
So I'd get computer games and sell them and make a few pounds. And what I was actually able to do was start accumulating a reasonable amount of money to buy computer equipment and stuff and to kind of fund my hobby, if you like. And by the time I left school, my computer equipment at home was like more powerful than everything they had at school put together. So that's kind of where my interest in computing came, and really the connection around trying to make some money. Then it just evolved. By the time I'd got through university and we did a few years of DOSing, then it was a case of, well, what do we do now? I don't really want to work for anybody else. I did a 12-month sandwich placement. I didn't have a great experience. I didn't want to go and work for anybody else.
Where was that?
That was actually at Westminster Police in their headquarters. It was like a newly formed IT department. They were just getting computers rolling out and stuff. And the people were amazing. They were nice people, but the routine to monotonous of it. It was just like I'd never felt so unhappy until I experienced that going to work. I thought I can't do this. And at that time, there's very low risk. What happens if you go off on your own and do something? Well, you haven't really got much to lose at that stage, so your risks are very low. So I started effectively getting involved in started a business around computers, selling computer equipment, and a lot of it was actually just very good timing, because computers were just being put onto desks. So we had solicitors, accountants, schools as clients, where we'd go and put their first computers on the desks. And then from that, it became, how do we connect these machines together and get them to talk to each other? And the business basically grew from there. And it was probably about 14 years or so I kind of ran that.
Wow. Okay. So, what would you advice would you give to somebody out there when they're setting up their business, and whether it's a business that's worth pursuing, worth growing and spending a certain amount of time? Is it more about the money? What thoughts was going into your mind when you set this new company up?
Yeah. I think, well, at the time, it was just one obsession. It was, how do I make some money? It was literally, that's what it was. And looking back now, I can say I probably wasn't a very nice person at the time. I was very materialistic. I was just driven by things. And maybe there were insecurities deep down that, many of my other friends went off into corporate career and stuff. And my parents were like, he's gone to do this business thing. He'll get over it in a year or so, and then he'll get a proper job. You see, so they were supportive and said, all right, go and do your thing then for a bit. And I was determined to prove everybody that I could do this. That's what it was about. And the things, the cars, house, stuff, they were the badges of success for me at the time. They were like, look at me. And so that's what really drove me.
Not many people think about going into entrepreneurship or going self-employed. Like, was there any sort of mentorship or anyone around you who you saw was self-employed and you thought, hang on, that doesn't look as difficult as it sort of sounds? Or
No,
was
I
any
think there wasn't. In short, there wasn't anybody that I could turn to or learn from. It was just observing. Someone's doing that. They're doing well. How are they doing it? There was no internet. There was no information. There was no books.
no?
There was nothing literally at that time. Whereas now, I think we're in a very different time. Starting a business now, for me, feels like 1,000 times easier now than it was then, because information is available.
Yeah.
Just like that. Anything you want to know, you can get that information. How to do something. So the value is no longer in the information, which I used to attribute value to at that time. Now the value is in how somebody can benefit from that. Yeah. So, for example, everyone's talking about ChatGPT right now, and it's an amazing tool, which it is. But the skill isn't in opening up and start doing a search on it. The skill is actually how do you understand to use the prompts in the right way to get the best out of it. And no one's really thinking about it in that way. So that's the value add. Otherwise, it's like Google. Why would somebody pay you to use Google when they can go and do it themselves?
Yeah.
So that it's developing that skill further. So I think it is about developing skills. Now, where does somebody start, and how do they start a business? And often, we hear this thing about follow your passion, and the music, the money will, will follow. And I think that's a nice phrase to say. The reality is, if you, if you enjoy, walking dogs, dog walking, for example, are you really going to build that into a substantial business? Probably a tiny proportion of people will. The vast majority won't. So we have to balance what is it ultimately we're trying to achieve, and what do we already know, and what are we interested in, and try and find, okay, what would get us to that point. And then over the years, I've realized people's personalities are very different. Some people are very detailed in the way they approach things, analytical, like an accounting mindset or an engineer type mindset. And some people are very big picture. Some say, just give me the overview. I don't want the detail.
Yeah.
And I'll get what we're talking about. And so recognizing ourselves, what type of personality are we? How do we perform best? When are we most productive? Are we somebody that really gets energized when we're with people? Can we inspire people and bring them on our journey? Or are we more of a person that's very kind of, for example, behind the screen, analyzing numbers, building the system, building the processes, making sure that works? We have to recognize and understand these things in order to increase our chances of success. Then it's really just about delivering value. And whatever we're doing, how can we add enormous amounts of value?
Sometimes you got people behind the camera that they want to be in front of the camera and they're not that good at the same time, and they
I haven't
think
seen my first videos.
but some people, like, for example, we're so good at doing our own jobs that we make it look easy and effortlessly. Do you know what I mean? To talk in front of a camera, that I know I'm having a conversation with you. I know these mics are picking up and everything's being picked up, and there's an audience of millions watching, because I believe that's where this is going to go.
Yes, it will. You do an
Um,
amazing job.
but like sometimes the people behind the camera also want a little bit of that because you make it look so easy, and then they try, and then it's like two cooks in the kitchen, if that makes sense. It's like, hey, look, if you do your job good and let me do my job well, then this works.
Yes.
Where I'm getting in bigger rooms, you're coming with me, and we can scale. But
Yes.
not everybody has that same sort of mindset.
That's really interesting. When I first started the IT business, I actually had a business partner, somebody who was a friend from school.
Yeah.
We fell out very quickly, and we haven't
Wow.
really talked since.
Wow.
It was an unpleasant divorce, if you like, a business divorce, very quickly.
So you started a business together?
Yeah, so I was married and divorced with my business partner, as it were, within literally a year or two, because we had a different opinion. But what of business and how to do business. But what we both used to do, we'd say, look, we're partners. We're going to share everything. We're going to do everything together. So we'd go and do all the activities together. But actually, that, as you say, it doesn't really benefit the business as much because you're utilizing two resources to achieve one thing, and it may be one person is going to perform that better than the other person. It doesn't need two people to do that. But at the time, we didn't know any different. But then, as we started to learn more about each other, we wanted different things, and we fell out fairly quickly in terms of that. And what I've recognized now, because I spent a lot of time on trying to understand people, because I think that a lot of business is about basic communication, how people communicate, how they can influence an outcome, just basic communication. And by understanding people, you realize that we will get attracted to somebody subconsciously like us because we see something in us in that person. And it's all subconsciously we're doing because it's a case of that person is like me. What often happens is, go back to the big picture person and a detailed person. So I'm a big picture person. So I'll resonate very quickly with somebody that's on the same frequency as me, thinking big picture. I'm thinking, wow, we'd be a force, man, if we were together doing something. That's what I'm thinking. But actually, if we end up working together, we're going to amplify that strength, but we're going to amplify our weaknesses as well.
Yes.
And I think the best partnerships are when actually there's complementary skills. And that's difficult to find because generally we don't attract that kind of person to us because their personality is different. But when we're consciously doing that, we're thinking about that. So, for example, occasionally people say to me, "You're hiring?" I say, "I'm always hiring.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for amazing, talented people. If I spot somebody, I've got to find a role for that person. But I'm trying to do it not because I like them or I see some of my traits in them, because I see some skills in them that are amazing that would be enormous value to our business. So when we're thinking about a partnership, it's finding who's got contrasting skills to us. That's really going to make a strong team, because then 1 + 1 is not 2. Then 1 and 1 is 11. That's what really makes, I think, a strong partnership. Um, and then with regards to cameras and getting in front of cameras, the reality is the world that we're in now, the strongest brands are individuals. Yes, you've got your Apples and Googles and stuff, but going forward, a lot of the big brands are individuals. And the first thing I would do is make sure you register your domain name, your personal name.com. Now, if you've got XYZ Business Limited, whatever, that's fine. But over your business career, you might evolve 2, 3, 5 times, but your name isn't going to change. You can change what you do. Your businesses might come and go, but your name isn't going to change. Protect your brand and think about your brand. And what is your brand? Your brand is what people say about you when you're not there.
Yeah.
What is being said about you. And in this day and age, you choose what that is. That's the power of the medium that we have literally at our fingertips, social media. When I was a kid again at school, we had 3 TV channels. Channel 4 came along after a little while, but primarily we had 3 TV channels, right? I'm really showing my age today. And the companies that wanted to get the nation's eyeballs would do it on a Saturday evening because that was primetime TV. And I've no idea what they paid for like a 15-second ad, but I'm sure it was an absolute fortune they paid to get the attention of the country's, all the eyeballs literally at 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening. But now you could pick up a camera, your phone even, you don't even need to buy expensive equipment, and you could reach millions. But we don't recognize that because we don't see the power of what we hold and carry around in our pocket and what that can do for us. And we just have to accept. I say to people, when they talk about I'm shy in front of a camera, I say, look, my first videos are just absolutely awful. There's still videos on me on the YouTube where they're not on my channel, but they're videos I've uploaded, which I forgot the password, so I can't take them down now on channels, where half my face is cut off. And I'm talking about, let me talk about this property and show you what we've done here and stuff like this. And I look at it afterwards and you can see my eyes and my mouth's cut off on screen and stuff. And I think, look, you know what? The reality is people don't follow me for fashion and beauty. So I need to stop caring what other people might think. And I have to focus on how am I giving value, because that's what it should be focused on. And when I accept that and I say, you know what, it doesn't matter if my hair's a bit spiky here or I'm not in a suit or whatever. It doesn't matter, because that's not what people are here for. So when we think about that and when we're trying to say, okay, how can I get my message out to people? Well, look, when we see Tony Robbins perform, we think, oh my God, I want to be the next Tony Robbins. That's the first mistake we make. There's only one Tony Robbins. And there's only one you. You just need to be the best version of you. And so rather than trying to step into this persona, right, okay, I'm in front of the camera, I need to be this different person now, you just be you. And yes, you need to try and elevate your energy, and there's little skills we can learn to be a bit better on camera. But the reality is we have to accept who we are, we recognize our strengths, and we say, okay, what can I give? Because that's what it's about. People are not here to see how your hair looks and how you sound and stuff. And I don't know if I'm just going off on a tangent there.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. It's lovely to hear. A lot of people don't love themselves. They find it hard to look in the mirror, and when mistakes happen, punch in the desk. Oh, you did this again, and why has this gone wrong, etc. Do you love yourself?
I absolutely do. I feel gratitude is the first thing for me every day when I wake up, and the last thing at the end of the day. And every minute of the day, I'm just so grateful. As I've, over the last 15, 20 years, I've become much more spiritual, much more connected to God. And I think, we've got one chance of life. So He's put us on this planet, and He's saying, do your thing. And part of that is how we're serving others, how we're helping others, how we're making a difference to others. And, as a Muslim, I believe our destiny is written anyway. It's just about how we get there. So by by not being happy with myself, I'm not going to serve myself. And I know it's easy to say that, but when sometimes we're in a difficult position, or things haven't gone well, we think, why did I do this? And why did we are where we are in life because the micro decisions we're making every single day. And if I look back now, it'd be difficult to plan out, but you could say, I made this decision, I ended up there, and I did that. And I could reverse engineer all the way back to where I went. I thought, well, actually, if I took a 1 degree different 20 years ago, I could have been completely somewhere else. Like if I'd bought that property then, when my mates, when we were at university, 4 of us, we'd worked out one day how much we pay our landlord, how much money's making, and we thought, we're just going to go and buy property. This was way before I ever got involved in property. And we went off and started looking at houses and stuff. So actually, we never did anything with it. It was just one of those harebrained ideas. We used to have like 5 a week. So that week it was just, we were going to be property developers. But actually, if I bought a house then, those properties were probably, this was in Wolverhampton, sub 20 grand.
Yeah.
19,000, 20 grand.
Wow.
Today, they're probably 250 grand. It's still not a great area where they are, but they're probably still 250 grand. And if I'd just managed to buy a few of those, which we could have at the time, well, my life could have been completely different. So I could sit here and think I could have done this and I could have done that. Or I can think about, look, I am where I am, whatever the reason, and certain things are going to happen to me, and I just can't control them. But I can control how I react and respond to them and how I feel about them. And if I start beating myself up, then I'm never going to be able to progress. So when you said you love yourself, I said you have to love yourself.
Yeah.
Because you know what? No one's going to come and save you. You have to start with yourself first.
Makes sense. Absolutely. It's the number one thing that before you do any course or you go to a seminar, everybody, like 90% is all about the mindset. Where's your mind at? And sometimes we just walk past it and we think, oh yeah, I've got the mind, just tell me what to do. And it's only when you hit problems, you understand how important the mindset is, because everybody will tell you the good, but nobody will tell you quite how to be prepared with the bad and the negatives. So what were some of the challenges you had in the IT career, self-employment that you had? Like, what were some of the things that stuck out that you learned?
Spoiler alert, I'd made a lot of money, literally millions of pounds, in my early 30s. And by my late 30s, I'd literally wiped myself out, everything. I'd lost everything. So the way that came about was, as we were starting installing equipment and we starting doing networking and connecting computer equipment and stuff, and service contracts and maintenance, that was very profitable. We're making really good money doing that. And it was just crazy. I couldn't believe how literally easy it was. And then I started thinking about, how can we grow this business? We need to start selling computer equipment. This is where everybody and anybody was selling computer equipment. And, Canon, Epson, anybody that had a name of anything, they'd slap it on a computer and they'd be selling computer equipment. And it's very, very competitive, very cutthroat. And actually, although the business built into millions of pounds of turnover, that side of the business, the margins were tiny. Because I was obsessed about top level numbers rather than actually what do you put in your pocket. What is it actually you're taking away and putting in your pocket? And one part of the business was very profitable. The other part was barely profitable. And sometimes we would lose money because when you get return of equipment and stuff, and it's the customer's not happy about it, you can't really send it back to supplier. You're reselling it at a loss and stuff. And it was getting to the point where it was too much. And ultimately, due to a number of bad decisions I ended up making, the whole thing just imploded, and literally I just lost everything.
Do you think you scaled too big to control?
I think I was definitely out of my depth without doubt, and that's my ability, because up until that point, I never really had any. I never employed somebody that was probably beyond my ability. Whether that was a fear thing or I was threatened by that, if somebody's more capable of me. Now I'm desperate to find people that are more capable of me and surround myself with them. But at that time, my mindset was different. And when we talk about mindset, the word that I use for mindset is self-talk. What do I tell myself? For me, that's what mindset is. How do I talk to myself? And if you're wondering, I don't have that little voice in my head. If you're thinking that is the voice that's telling you that, by the way. So it's, I think it was, there were probably a lot of insecurities at that time, and I wouldn't let go. I was very controlling. And there was a lot of stuff that was beyond my ability that I didn't really accept. I was digging a hole and I kept digging and kept digging. And sometimes you need to recognize, actually, you need to stop digging because you're drowning.
So you had to cut your losses there. So what happened after that? Did you just go straight into something else,
Now
or
then that I'd gone from massive self belief to a huge amount of you're a complete idiot.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And when we talk about earlier on about do you love yourself, I definitely didn't love myself at that moment in time. Um, my eldest daughter, she was at private school at the time and had to take her out of that. She couldn't afford the fees anymore. And she'd look at me and she said, "Daddy, why can't I be with my friends? Why would you not let me see my friends?" And those sort of things just really cut me up and hurt me. Um, and I was just wallowing self pity for a while. I was blaming everybody else. I wasn't accepting any of this as it was my fault at that time. Suppliers were not good to us. The customers were not right. My staff didn't know what they're doing. It was everybody's fault except mine. And it took a little bit of time to realize. And that was a big shift at the time. Actually, as I said earlier, we are where we are because of decisions we make. And when I realized, actually, I am here because I made all those decisions. Nobody made me do them. I made all those decisions, and that's why we're here. And I have to accept that. It took a little while, 6 months or so, and that was probably quite a low point. That's probably the lowest point in my life. Um, and during this process, my dad always encouraged me to you should buy property, and I never really was interested. But we did buy one house along the way, and I think just rightly to please my dad. Okay, yeah, okay, we bought a house as you've as you want, and we just got it cheap. I didn't know anything about property at the time. Got it a little bit below market value, and the price had shot up. And I sold it a couple of years later, and I think we made about 80 grand or something on it.
80?
80,000.
Oh wow.
No skill, nothing. This was just we bought this property, it gone up in value, sold it, so I needed money for the business. All that 80 grand went in the business, and all of it kind of was lost anyway. There was nothing to show for it. But the point being, and my wife was saying to me as well, that one thing we did buying that property made us a lot more money than some of the other things we've done, and we didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking about property, and I'd always been a fan of the Sunday Times Rich List. In fact, I've got every edition from it first ever was published.
Wow.
I'd obsessively go through it because we talked about mentors earlier. There was nobody there that I had. There was only two people that were, if you like, your influencers at the time: Richard Branson, Alan Sugar. Nobody else. They're the only people that used to come up on TV. These are the amazing business people in the country. So the Rich List was a way for me to understand what makes people successful. How do they create obscene amounts of wealth like that? What is it? And I'd read through literally, what do they do? How they made their money? How they built so much wealth? And a realization was so many of them either made money from property or they kept money in property. If they made it somewhere else, it'd go into property. Even Alan Sugar now, most of his wealth is in property.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a kind of penny drop moment for me. But actually, this is something I look at because the other thing I was thinking is, look, I've got to do something. I can't just not do anything. And as much as my wife was saying, maybe it's time to get a job, and I think I am not getting a job. I am not going to go and work for anybody. I'm going to find something to do, but we ain't, we're not doing that. I'm not going to go and find a job. And whether that's stubbornness or whatever it was, it's probably more stubbornness than anything else.
Was you ever in a position when the company started folding and all these issues started arising, like that you was in any financial difficulty
Massive.
yourself?
I was in huge financial problems then.
So how was you like paying your
I
mortgage and all of them
I was living
things?
with my parents.
Okay.
That was it. I was living with my parents, and that was the only way I was kind of like,
Wow.
and it was like, to be honest, my parents never really understood what happened because I never really explained to them. I was just guys, oh, it's not working out, and I was just in such a mess. And so one of the challenges with property was the belief that you always need money to make money from property. I think, well, I haven't got any money. My credit record is just screwed because I'm just like in a complete mess right now.
Yeah.
I can barely keep a roof over my own head, and I'm thinking about how to put a roof over other people's heads and be a landlord. So I had these belief issues going on as well at the time. And when I started going along to some networking events, we started the conversation around networking. It was like a completely different world for me. there were people having conversations. Firstly, they were open. They were talking about buying property, no money down, and all these things. And I'm thinking, and you'd hear about someone doing something, then you see somebody talking about on the stage, and you think, oh my god, this person's real. They're actually doing this.
Yeah.
So, for a few months, I was just like, I couldn't believe I'd walked into this world. But I was still, I didn't know how to start, and I didn't have any money, and I'd walk around in a suit, and I just had, massive amounts of a kind of inferiority complex and, imposter syndrome, and like, what am I doing here? Do you know what I mean? All these guys are property people and millionaires, and there's me, like, in my Primark suit. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
I had all those issues, and but the thing that actually got me going is the case. It was just self belief that there's only one person that's going to fix this problem, and that's me, the person I look at in the mirror. Nobody's coming to save me.
So what was the next steps?
So then it was, okay, people are talking about you can buy property, no money down. I'm thinking, okay, I need to understand how to do this. I'd learn about, when I talk about learn, it was books. There's a couple of property forums at the time. There was no Facebook, nothing, and some networking events. That was it. But the most valuable commodity at the time was still information, i.e., how to do something, which we don't even think about now because it's in abundance. Um, so there was this period where I was trying to get little bits of information on how to do something and trying this and trying that. Really, I was just desperate to try and get something to work. And actually, it took 2 years before I actually made any money in property.
Wow.
There's a number of times my wife said, okay, you know what? You've given this a go now. You need to get, I'm not getting a job.
Yeah.
I'm going to get this thing to work. I saw this person, they bought this many properties, they've done it, no money down, they're earning this much money. And I kept reciting back to her all the stuff that I'd hear. And sometimes, I'd go to a networking event, I'd be so energized and excited about meeting somebody and seeing what they've achieved. And I'd come back and I'd try and tell my wife, this is happening. This time next year, babe, we're going to be millionaires. And she thought I'd kind of join some crazy cult and stuff.
Right.
And she's always been massively supportive. She goes, whatever you think is right, we'll do it. But actually, it took a couple of years, and the market crashed completely at the time. We're talking, it's about 2008 at that time when I'd started, actually made my first money from a little bit of money from property. And that was by selling a deal, finding a deal and selling somebody else. So it started with sourcing, and this comes back to skills we were talking about earlier on, just basic communication. It was sitting down with the owners, understanding what's going on for them, trying to find a solution. I'm learning all this stuff, so I'm thinking maybe we do this and this, and then this could work. And so I started making little bits of progress at that time.
How did you find somebody who wanted to sell their house?
Well, I was going along saying, look, you need to do leaflets, you need to do this. So I'd be talking to people, and I became a prolific networker. I'd literally kind of be the first person at the networking event. I'm getting my 20 quid's worth, and I'm going to be the last one to leave. I'd even pack the chairs away with them. I'll literally be the last person to leave. And I just built relationships. So I'd know who's got something, who saw something, who's got some money, who's looking to buy. And, building up this little spreadsheet. And I'm blessed with a good memory as well. I remember people's names, where they are, what they're doing and stuff. And so the networking enabled to start connecting a little bit. And then it was doing a little bit of leafleting of my own as well. And the real shift actually came. There was a mastermind group that I wanted to join. It was, I can't remember exact names, but like 18 grand or something at the time. This is a time where I literally would not have more than 5 quid in my pocket. And the reason I wanted to join that, because I'd met people who were doing amazing things, and many of them were part of a mastermind group. And I'm thinking, this is what I can see here, but there's another door to go through, and there's access to all this. How can I get into that space? And there was just isn't going to be a way for me to do that. And I said that I was really good at kind of connecting, building relationships, and one person who I'm internally grateful for, I'd met and we'd built a good relationship. And he was thinking of doing it as well. And ultimately, what happened, to come a long story short, he said, you know what, let's do this. I'll pay for the partnership for us to do it. And, I'm this big picture guy saying, let's do it. Let's just go. And he committed, we'd kind of signed up to this thing. And actually, and this was at a property networking event, made this commitment. I was driving back home and I was thinking, what have I done? I'm already struggling. I've barely got any money. And now this person has just made this big financial commitment. on me. And I got back and I was literally sick. I was like, thinking, what on earth have I done?
Mm.
It was like, you just sold your home. That's how it felt. That when you don't have anything, and then the problem gets bigger. So actually, that was difficult, but that was also the turning point, because that then just focused me. I have to make this work now. Failure is not going to be now an option.
Mm.
I just can't do that, because it was like I was just so grateful that he did this, and I felt I needed this. The reality was I didn't really need that environment. I just needed some support and accountability. That's all I needed. But that provided that for me. And then one of the first things that I got help with is, look, I'm great going out talking to people, but I'm not actually doing anything. And they said, look, forget all these other things you're trying to do, a little bit no money down, a little bit trying to flip a property, a little bit trying to negotiate. Just go and negotiate the deals, and then just pass them on to all these other people you meet, because they'll quite happily pay you for them. And that's literally how it then started. So then I was just blinkers on, not getting distracted by anything else, because I was definitely a sucker for a shiny penny, something interesting on there. You know what I mean? Because I was clutching at straws trying to get something to work. And then when I said, I literally just trust the process, about get my marketing going, go and have the conversations. It's just going to be a conversion rate. Then as it started to work, £2,000, £3,000 for this, then I really ramped up my marketing. So I was doing like 100,000 leaflets. I'd run massive newspaper adverts and stuff. And for a few years, we were just like killing it in terms of selling deals.
Wow. So you're almost like an estate agent, no?
Literally, that's what you are. Although I'd never thought about it. Now, when I teach sourcing, I say that's exactly what you are. You're an estate agent. You do nothing different from what an estate agent does. You sell property. The only difference is the person paying you. Because it's not the owner of the property is paying you, it's the buyer that's paying you. Otherwise, what else is different?
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, we're competing for the same leads with the estate agent. We're trying to find that seller that wants to sell their property. And so that's literally was, although at the time I didn't think about it like that, but that's literally what we were doing. And then it slowly transitioned into, there was a deal that I'd found in Kidderminster, in fact, where this guy, he was getting repossessed. A lot of repossessions were just like horrendous at the time. There were just so many happening. And I talked to this guy, I'd been talking to him for months, and I could see he was in difficulty. By this time, I'd really figured out how mortgages work. I'd be talking to lenders, I'd be renegotiating debt and stuff like this, and structuring the deal by trying to find a buyer and putting option contract. I was getting very creative, because there's just an abundant amount of deals to be had. And I was trying to sell this deal to an investor who'd bought a number of deals from me before, and he wasn't confident in my numbers. He said, "Look, I don't think that it's going to cost more than that to get this property right, and it's not really going to rent for what I'm saying." This is what he was saying to me. And I was thinking, no, it is. It will work. And I'm thinking to myself, if he doesn't buy this property, I've spent months trying to get something to work here with this deal. Okay, that's fine. I won't have got paid, but he's missing out on a good deal, and the seller's going to get repossessed. He's screwed. And I was thinking, look, okay. In the end, it was like by accident through the conversation. I said, you know what? Just if you buy the deal, I'll get it done for the price I'm saying it will be, to tidy it. It wasn't much. It was a bit of decorating, a little few repairs, carpet, stuff like this. And I'll get it tenanted for you. And in fact, you know what? Just pay me something at the rent as a kind of like bit of profit. It was like literally off the cuff like that. And so we did the deal, and it kind of panned out to what we said. And my share was something like, I can't remember, it was like 40 quid or something, £47 a month. I never really thought anything of it, but really that was my first accidental joint venture.
Mm-hmm.
But that then became a theme when the penny dropped. I'm selling a deal, I'm getting £2,000, £3,000, on a great day, maybe £8,000 for a deal. But I've got £47 or so coming in here forever. It took a little bit of realizing, actually, there's have to be a lot of houses, a lot of £47 before I can, get anywhere close to financially free or pay my bills each month. But what it meant was that just the realization, actually, if you bring enough value to somebody else, they could fund the deals. Then this thing I was obsessed with, I can't get any credit. Can you take out a property? You hold the mortgage for me and we'll sort it. I was doing that everywhere. Doing a deal, and I said, I can't get a mortgage. Can you take the property on for me? And the realization actually was somebody else could fund this and we could do this as a partnership. So then I started cherry picking deals. Actually keeping that one, I can find somebody to partner with it because there's enough profit in it rather than just selling it for a few £1,000s. So then we started doing some buy to lets like that, and then started doing some small flips and stuff, and small HMOs and slightly larger HMOs, and then it kind of evolved from that to all the other stuff we've done: service accommodation, commercial conversion, building new houses, apartment conversions. All of this stuff started with that journey, and the the key funding method has always been somebody else's money. My job is to, well, literally my pitch is, and you can copy this word for word, is I use my time, skill, and experience to find fantastic property investment opportunities. Then I partner with cash-rich individuals in order to share the profit. That's really what it was, and variations of that. That's what I would say. And so what I'm saying to them essentially is, I will do everything. You just put the money in, and I'll deliver value for you. And I'm not taking any money out until you've made money. And so that then became a running theme for years and years. And still today, we still, I'd do a lot of stuff, steal other people's money as well. But it takes a long time to build a reputation, and you can destroy it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's many people that I'd met early along the way who've fallen by the wayside because they've just messed up. They got greedy. They overpromised, underdelivered, and stuff. And so I'm always conscious of there's somebody else's money that we have to be super careful. So now, I talk about, look, you're not going to make an outstanding return with me. You're going to make good to modest, but it's not actually about return on investment. It's about return of investment. And so that's really how the business has kind of grown and developed. And along the way, the team has grown quite a bit. It's about 25 people in the team now, and a lot of really good business partners.
Wow. What a journey. Like,
I don't think I've ever gone into this much detail in a podcast before.
Wow, I'm glad I made you feel relaxed enough to let it all out. So you said there was a few people that you knew at the start, but they didn't last into to now. Like, are there any people that you still know from the start of the journey?
Yeah, absolutely. There's still lots and lots of people. I've still got my first spreadsheet. I should blow the dust off it at some point and pull it out, some old files. Where I used to collect this spreadsheet of people I met. So let's say we met a networking man. I said, right, Sean Land does this, lives in this area. This is what he's looking for. I'd have that on my spreadsheet.
Wow.
And I'd probably got to about 500 names and bits of information on that before I kind of stopped carrying on growing. Then I'd put it into little CRM and stuff after that. But I just used to run it on a little Excel sheet. And then if I'd find something, let's say, I don't know, let's say you're looking for something in Stoke-on-Trent, then I'd just get into the Excel spreadsheet and I'll just search for Stoke and see which names come up. And I say, right, I need to give them a call. I said, Sean, we spoke before. You said maybe you might be interested in something in Stoke. I might have something in the pipeline.
Right.
Literally, it was like that.
And how did you find properties all over the UK?
Well, it wasn't all the UK. It was just West Midlands. It was West Midlands. It started off in Stoke-on-Trent, actually, funny enough, because when I first started, late 2006, the prices were still high and they were still rising. The market was very buoyant at the time. This was before the crash. And I just made the assumption there's no deals in Birmingham. I have to go somewhere cheaper. I haven't got any money anyway. And I heard you could buy a house in Stoke-on-Trent for like 10 grand. I thought, 45 minutes down the road, hour down the road, I'm off to Stoke-on-Trent. Very quickly, I discovered why they were so cheap. You stop at the traffic lights and somebody's nicked your wheels by the time the lights are changed. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there's reasons sometimes places are really cheap because people don't want to live there.
Yeah.
They're not nice places. But I did end up buying some property in Stoke, and so most of it we've got rid of now. And so I started doing a little bit there, just focusing on that area, understanding the area, the demographics and stuff. And then by late 2007, the market pretty much started to fall on its face anyway. And 2008, we were kind of in a height of recession. And then I just focused on Birmingham then and some of the surrounding towns, Wolverhampton, Dudley, Walsall, Kidderminster, little bits of Coventry, stuff like that.
Okay, so that's your patch, Birmingham.
West Midlands, yeah, Birmingham and surrounding areas. So if I can get to it within about 40 minutes from our office and our home, and my home is literally half a mile from the office, everything's very, very close. I think I'm just getting older and I don't like kind of doing things further away. And it started with I'm obsessed that I've got somebody else's money in here. So if there's an issue, I want to be there. But that mindset actually hasn't left me, even though there's lots of properties we have I've never visited
Wow.
because the team, I trust the team and certain things that we're doing. Um, so they could literally be anywhere in the country. There could be any in the world, but I'm still obsessed with it has to be 40, 45 minutes from where we are.
Wow, wow. Well, so you like your patch. So I also
Yes,
like that. That's a formula I follow.
yeah,
Like, can I get there in half an hour, hour? It's got to be within a limit. I have this thing that if I've got a builder, I can use them all over
absolutely.
these
Your
same
knowledge
patch.
builds, your skill, your connections. Builders, tradespeople, agents. Everything just grows because you stay in that patch.
Yeah, and you can smell it. You
Yeah.
can smell if a deal's good or not. When
Yes.
somebody says it,
Yeah.
within 5 minutes, you know yes or
You
no.
know what? You say that there's so many times someone's rang me up about something because I've been prolific about saying to people, look, if you've got anything, come and talk to me.
Yeah,
I'm always looking and I'll pay good fees if the deals are good.
yeah,
Um, and the number of times people rang me and says, I've got this thing on this street and I'm thinking, how much is it? I said, I'll have it. Before they've even finished the sentence, I'll have it because I've already, the area so well that you know how much money you can make from it.
yeah. Yes, 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 for sure. What is the difference? Like, I've bought in London and I've seen great capital appreciation in this side of the patch. And obviously, the rental's not so bad. I mean, now you don't get as good a yield,
Mhm,
but we just look at where's your gold stock now? Do I want it in the bank account or do I
mhm.
want it in a property? And you'd rather it in a property, even especially through hard times, because my money's safe there
Yes.
than rather the bank account and just eroding. What's the differences you've noticed in investing in Birmingham?
Um, so I think London is a complete different market from the rest of the country.
Hmm.
So you can see certain trends happening throughout the country, but London is always different. But I think things happen here first. So even when I look at when the market started crashing or when there was rises, it would fall in London first, it would rise in London first, then it spread out to the rest of the country. It's
Hmm.
like from the southeast, it kind of go out this
Hmm.
way. And so it's always kind of interesting to know what's going on in London. And London is like not just a capital of the country, it's like a capital city of the world.
World, yeah.
The amount of money that comes here from overseas, why
Hmm.
does it come here? Because it's seen as a safe place to keep money. There are lots of very wealthy people, families, businesses that will keep money in London. Um, and there's so many times I've had conversations with people as well overseas, and I haven't really been that successful with getting overseas investors investing with me. So lots of conversation I've had, and they say, "Is it in London?" I said, "No, no, it's Birmingham." How's that from? How far is that from London? Well, we can go see the Queen in about an hour and a half. So, because that was the only thing they knew.
Yeah,
What's Birmingham? How do you spell that? Do you know what I mean?
but Birmingham is coming up, isn't it?
It is. I mean, things are
You've
changing.
got a few
City wise,
universities.
it's a fantastic place. I love investing there. There's nowhere else I would want to live. I love the city. I love everything about it. The weather is something we can't change. That's the
Mhm.
whole country anyway. But I think it's an amazing place. But I think we are the poor cousin of Manchester. Manchester just excelled past us, even though we're the second city.
Mm.
Um, so I think London is very different, and people will invest in London for very small yields because it's somewhere to put money. It's not
Mhm.
even about making money; it's just part of the money. It's safe. Just buy a property, leave it empty. It doesn't matter. Which is the money, all the money's safe. And the long-term capital growth, even though it might get tiny yield, 10, 50 years time, the way prices have gone is crazy.
Yeah.
And there's
Have
so
you?
many people I know that invested in London 20, 30 years ago. What they paid is 150,
Yeah.
170 grand. That was probably worth £1 million now.
Yeah. They are. And has that ever tempted you to buy in London?
No, I've been very, very kind of blinkered about, no, if it's not 40, 45 minutes, I'm not really interested. I don't really want to get involved. And I get very good at going blah 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 blah, and just tune out to anything
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
my thing. And so this, and my view is, look, there's so many different ways to make money from property. It's not just buy a house and rent it out, which is what most of the property investing community will do. A small percentage of that understand there's many different ways that and creative deals and things you could do. But the vast majority just do simple buy to let. And our parents' generation have been working very hard, especially Asian community. They'll have bought property, paid off their assets, debt and stuff on them, and so it's quite common to see that. But actually, they've just used that one method, and it served them well. There's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
that. Some have built quite substantial wealth through that. But actually, because there's so many different ways to make money, I think, but you don't need to go anywhere. You could do it here. Why do we want to go to Dubai to make money when
Yeah.
actually we could
Yeah.
do it here on our doorstep?
It's
And I view
funny.
London the same way. Yeah, London is glitzy, it's nice, and lots happening. But actually, you know what? We can do it here. And many of my investors are actually from London. And there tend to be most of my investors that invest with me, either from a medical background, doctor, dentist, pharmacist, optician, or from an IT background. That tends to be most of my investors fall into that
Mm.
camp, and a lot of them down from the southeast.
It's funny you say that when you mentioned Dubai. Somebody offered me a deal. They said it's 300,000. You got to put 150,000 down. 75 we'll give you because
Yeah,
the deals fell out.
yeah.
You just need to find the 75, and we'll get you the loan on the rest of it. And I was like, oh, it sounds quite good. And you could see, I don't know what's that building called that's like that sort of
Oh,
shape. The
is that
Burj
Burj Al Arab?
Arab. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. So you see that view in there, and I was like, so I'm gonna go for it. And then I always consult my dad
yeah,
when I do an investment. I said, Dad, I think I'm gonna go for one in
yeah,
Dubai. And he's like, what are you doing that for?
yeah,
I was like, everyone's hanging out
yeah,
there,
yeah,
and stuff. And he goes, do you even know the market?
yeah,
What are you gonna do if you got issues and problems? Who are you gonna call? And
yeah,
our dad, I think they sort that out. They
yeah.
go, yeah, but you don't even know if it's real or not, or you can't. They
Yes,
know you can't physically
yeah.
run there. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm
Got a
just
good point.
foaming in. He goes, put that money down over here,
Yeah,
get some rent,
yeah,
and whenever you want to go anywhere in the world, just rent.
yeah.
Because you could just see that one property, you're getting a grand on top. You can rent somewhere else,
Yes,
anywhere
yeah,
around the world.
yeah.
Malaga, Spain. I like to go Barcelona, Costa Brava, wherever. And he's always just like, that's the better thing to do. And I thought about it. I thought, yeah, it's better to deal with
Yeah.
the devil than the one you don't.
Yeah, and I'm sure lots of people are making great money in Dubai. In fact, one of the girls who used to work with me, she left about a year ago to go and sell property in Dubai. She's doing really well, and so I'm sure you can make great money in Dubai. I can make great money right here on my doorstep. So why am I going to go 50 miles away, 100 miles away, thousands of miles away when you can do it on my doorstep? That's my view.
So is Birmingham home for you now? Because like the UK is changing so much, and the diversity and pronouns and the
Yeah,
whole confusion, like it makes me wonder. Like, oh, I just want to give the keys over to an agent, give me my fixed amount, and let me go to the Middle East somewhere,
yeah.
where I can get peace of mind. I ain't gonna be all these little things of these confusions going on, sort of thing. What's your mindset?
That's a really interesting question. I think I've got so many friends and family in the Middle East in various different countries now, and it's it's really tempting for me for two reasons. One, the weather's great, and secondly, many of them are Muslim countries as well, and kind of lifestyle for me suits me there. But I can't see myself leaving here to go
Hmm.
there. I can see us spending a month there, or a couple of months. That's it. I can't see
Hmm.
us doing that. And I've just had my first grandchild. Hopefully, there'll be many more to come. And then I'd rather be around them, and these things are important for me. Many times I've had an idea. Oh, could we go and live in Turkey? What about Oman? What Dubai looks interesting and stuff. We have those thoughts, and I think at the end of the day, this is home.
Hmm.
And, I'm blessed to still have my mom with me. My father passed away, 18, 19 years ago now. And, and I can't see her wanting to go and live anywhere else
Yeah,
either.
understand. So you've done so many different strategies within the property world.
Many of them by accident, by the way.
um, talk us through something that didn't go so well on one of your deals.
Oh man, there's so many things that haven't worked out. Like we talk about all the rosy stuff. There's so many things. Property is such a challenge. Every day, literally, there's something or another that you have to deal with, fight and sort something out. And the rewards are massive in property, but you've got to be able to deal with all the issues and challenges. And you've got to. I think if you want to build a substantial business of property, you've got to be able to cope with pressure and be able to deal with all the challenges that come. So there's problems all the time that will happen. And many of the earlier challenges I used to have was around the money. So we'd have a chat, for example, say, hey, Sean, about this, you interested? Say, yeah, I might be open to fund that. I think in my head, I'm thinking, tick in the box, Sean's going to fund that deal with us.
Yeah.
And I'm off doing the next thing. And I haven't really kind of picked up that conversation. Big picture guy, like I'm off doing the next thing now. And solicitors kind of cracking on. A few weeks go by, solicitor says, right, can you send me kind of funds and stuff? Sean, the solicitor's ready for. And think, well, yeah, you didn't get back in touch with me and stuff. And in fact, actually, I've invested somewhere else. And I'm thinking, shit, I'm relying on you funding that. What am I doing now?
Yeah.
And then frantically, I'm trying to find some money from somewhere else. And I've had so many close ones like that. In fact, I had one where we exchanged contracts, and then we didn't have the money to get it funded. Now, just like frantically trying to find the money, and then we got notice served on as well. And I said, so what does that mean? Does that mean like, we're gonna like have major problem? He goes, well, no, they give you a little bit of time, then they can start charging you a penalty. How much would the penalty be? Okay, that's fine. Let's do that while I go and figure out the money. So a lot of those challenges were, I think, many around money, lining money up, and over time I just got much better at that. And in terms of making sure that my investors on board, they're committed fully and stuff like that, and never being reliant on one source. So yeah, we might have the deal done, but I got plan B lined up just in case.
Right.
Sean, it's no problem. I understand something's come up. You check, it's no problem at all. I got my plan B ready. So I've always, or I say always, the last number of years, that's how I've worked. Always having a plan B. And then at the beginning when I first started, because I know you've got a building background, I didn't have a clue about building. I could wallpaper because I used to like just decorate home and wallpaper a little bit, and that was it. And I could paint, including the door handles and hinges. I could paint everything. And I don't think we were supposed to do that, but I could manage a brush. And when we're starting doing the first flips, or even some of the basic buy-to-let stuff we were doing, and I said, yeah, I'll find a plumber, electrician to do this. And as the refurbs got bigger and bigger, I was just out of my depth again, and I was trying to project manage, running around for them. It got to a point I felt like, actually, these guys don't work for me, I work for them. They got me running around here doing this, doing that, and forgot this, and that person did this, and plasterer saying I can't do this, electrician hasn't done that. But I'm thinking, but I thought you were doing the plastering. But he said, yeah, but I can't do this because he hasn't done that. And I was, well, have you asked him? And said, no, well, you organize it. So I had all these problems at the beginning, and what happened actually, one of our very first flat conversion that we had, property we got in Dudley, the architect that got the plan sorted out for me, he said, have you got a builder to do this? I said, I haven't. I'm going to try and project manage it and stuff. And I wasn't doing a great job project managing up until that point anyway. And he said, well, I've got somebody I might be interested to do that could do this. And they've done a number of these type of properties. And he used to work for a developer that's gone bust, because this was, I think, about 2008, 9, something like that. I think it was 2009. I can't remember exactly now. I said, okay, that's fine. And so he recommended, he came and had a look and gave me a reasonable quote. And I thought, that seems all right and stuff. And we've got this super long contract together and stuff. And he did that project. And, we made a mistake around the sound insulation, which I'll come back to in a moment. But the builder did his job. He did a great job. There are a couple of other little things he sorted out, and it was actually a really good job he did, and good quality of workmanship as well. And then we went on to do another one and another one. And then actually, he's never worked for anybody since.
Wow.
He's like full time with me, and that made a big difference, because the trust started building. Actually, I can trust somebody to take care of that side of it. I don't have to worry about the detail. So that was a big shift. Up to that, I had so many challenges with managing trades. I think I've had new builds and stuff where we had 2 builders went bust on the contract and stuff as well. And so point being, there's always challenges. There's always stuff going on. It's never going to be a smooth journey. But that's what we sign up for, and that's why there's so much money to be made in this business. And that first conversion we did, I did all the figures and everything, and that was a joint venture as well. And sound insulation. What's sound insulation? Nobody told me about anything about sound insulation until we started ripping the property out, and it says, well, you got to put sound insulation. What's that? How much is that going to cost? And then I found out how much that costs, and that just blew my numbers out the water. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And I had to go back cap in hand to my joint venture partner and say, good news and bad news. Good news, we're progressing nicely with the project. Bad news, I've made a big mistake. I've not factored in, actually, because we're upgrading the property and stuff, we actually have to put sound insulation between these properties, and it's going to cost X. And in the end, what I did, my partnership share got renegotiated down because he's putting more money in. And you know what? If he had said to me, I ain't giving you anything, that would have been fine, because I'd messed up and there's nothing. It was all my fault anyway. But it kind of turned out okay. So there's a huge learning. That was.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us about one of your best deals?
One deal I like, and we still have, is a property. There's 3 flats. It's actually a building with 6 units in it. It's a convenience store and 5 flats in the block in Dudley. This was, and the owner of the building had run a convenience store there for a very long time. Then he retired. Um, Asian family. He gave the building to his two sons, but rather than doing a vertical split, it was like kind of a bit like it was odd split the way he did the building, like the 3 and 3 units. It wasn't a clean cut, and the paperwork is just a mess, like the titles, the way it had been done. And what happened? The two brothers were just like they were just at it. That yours is bigger than mine. Yours is worth more than mine. I should have had this.
But
And so it's a typical family feud. And unfortunately, we see in our kind of Asian community quite a lot. And I was thinking to him when I first met the guy, and because I think he responded to a newspaper advert or something initially. When I first met the guy, and I was trying to get my head around, hang on a minute, your dad is giving you this, and you now have an issue about this with your brother and stuff like this. Bloody hell, I wish somebody would give me something like that. Not recognizing what they were getting, they were focused on what they didn't have, and not appreciating what they had. And this actually conversation went on for about a year. 200 and something thousand he wanted for the 3 flats. I mean, they're not kind of high value anyway. It kind of gone to auction, didn't sell, paperwork was messed, they couldn't get it organized in time. And him and his brother were just kind of loggerheads all the time, kind of starting to have issues. And I was saying to him, look, I can get this deal done for you, but it can't be there and it's below. And he got to a point where, because one, I was persistent, and second, persistent in terms of I was regularly in touch with him. Where are we? What's happening? You ain't sold it. What can we do? And I learned to try and follow up on everything.
Yeah.
And actually, probably half the deals we do probably started off as a no, that doesn't work for me at the beginning. The seller said, but just by keeping in touch, because things change, time is, we've got time on our side. Often they haven't, and as the circumstances change, they become more flexible. And that's exactly what happened here. And in the end, we bought those 3 flats for £75,000.
Wow.
That's 3 flats for 75,000, not one.
Wow.
And they were probably worth about 260, 270 grand, literally on day one.
Wow.
And they'd been fully renovated. They just hadn't been signed off the building regs, so they don't pay council tax. And they were empty, fully renovated, ready to go.
Wow.
They've literally nothing to do other than just get the building regs done and just move the tenants in. And we've still got those properties in the portfolio.
Nice. So what are the strategies going forward now? House prices, we don't know what's happening with it at the moment. There's inflation, very high interest rates, cost of living crisis. Property doesn't look that attractive at this moment in time because we're kind of at the sort of slump bottom, or we don't even know if that's still incoming. We've just had another 0.25% increase in the base rate. Long term, they might be lower rates because they see it coming down after inflation comes down. But what do we do in this interim?
There's quite a lot of things you've just said there. So let's unpack it a little bit. So we just had the 12th interest rate rise in a row. And when you look at that on a graph, that's like a sharp rise like this. And the last time there's a line like that is at the crash, the financial crash, when the interest rates dropped right down. So it's quite rare for us to have such sharp change, which shows how desperate they are to control and manage the economy. And as you said, inflation's out of control. There's so many other problems around the world that are causing and having impact on why we are suffering as a country. But that isn't going to change anytime soon. And you will always be able to make money from property, but the strategy you use, you might need to change and adapt. So property, I think, will always be good. You just have to adapt with the times. Certain techniques and strategies work better in certain times and climate. So we were talking about when I first got started, the focus really was on discounted property. It was 100 grand property, we want to buy 70 or 75 grand. That was my objective. Secure it at 75 grand and I'll sell it over here for 5 grand. The guy who's buying it still got 20 grand he's made day one. That was just like in my head, that's all I used to think about. And then by the time we got to probably 2012, it pretty much dried up. There were no more people looking to sell their property that cheap. Why was that? Well, I was getting even better at what I was doing than I did at the beginning because I was more skilled up. So why wasn't I getting the deals? Because the market had changed. And the reason I could get those deals at that time was supply and demand. Very few people were buying. People were fearful. People were scared. And even those that had the appetite couldn't get the funding because it was a financial meltdown. But there were still people that needed to sell for many, many reasons. So picking up these deals was so easy. And by 2012, as prices started to rise, more people started to come back to the market. Interest rates were much lower. Actually, they didn't need to sell to a discount to me because the estate agent says, well, I've got 5 people who'll buy that for you, mate.
Yeah.
And now when we look at where we are now, or let's actually roll the clock back a year, first of all. And if you were trying to buy properties last year, for sale sign would go outside, you'd ring the estate agent, can I get a viewing booked? No, sorry, we've already had 5 offers. What do you mean? The for sale sign's only been up 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh no, we'd already accepted offers 10,000 above the asking price now.
Yeah.
That was the nature of the market because there were that many people chasing each property. The supply and demand was the opposite. There was very little supply and huge demand, and that was pushing price up through the roof. But what's happening now? Actually, the stock on the market is still there, and there's still more stock coming to the market, but the demand is starting to slow down for many reasons. The main one is affordability. So, for example, somebody looking to move home, the deal they're getting now on their mortgage is completely different to what they would have got a year ago. So, actually, they have to pay a lot more now to get into that deal than they would have then. And then, because utilities are higher and general cost of living expenses, they've actually got less money in their pocket anyway. So, the need to move house has dropped down the priority list.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think, actually, you know what? We'll just sit on our hands for a bit here. We don't need to move right now. So they've pulled back. So there's less buyers there, as it were, from your home movers. And from investors' point of view, look at buy-to-let mortgages don't make sense anymore. You can barely make any money. Some of the yields are so low that actually you probably wouldn't make any cash flow. And for that reason, you wouldn't be able to get a mortgage. So the traditional buy-to-let model is pretty much dead.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say 100%, but mostly I'd say it's kind of finished. So now we've got this place in the market where actually there's now fewer buyers, but there's still a reasonable amount of stock. So our focus now is, okay, how do we identify the ones where there's motivation, where the seller's keen to sell? So what I mean is, so let's say a property's been on the market, it got sold, it fell out of bed, and it got sold again, it's fallen out of bed again. So let's say it's had 2 failed sales. That seller, 6-8 months on now, is much more keen to sell if they need to sell compared to then. And there's various tools and things we use to try and track these things. And you can see the price drops as well. So you can see not only the property coming back to the market, but now it's dropped. It's 30 grand, 50 grand less than what it was. You could have a property that's been advertised by several agents. You could have a property that's for sale and to let at the same time. All of these things are indications that that seller might be keen to sell. So rather than going to view general property, my mindset has gone back to 2008. Let's just focus on talk to the people that are keen to sell because that's where the deals are. That's where the flexibility is. And I think we have a year, maybe a year and a half, where this climate will exist.
Mm-hmm.
And you said just now that we're probably at this curve point, maybe. And in 2008, when I was trying to sell deals at the time, I would go to people that had money. So many of my old clients that had money, I'd go to them and say, I've got deals and stuff. And some of them had a lot of cash. I knew they had a lot of cash. I knew their businesses. And I don't know, and I think it's 100. It was last year, it was up for 100 grand. Now I've got it 60 grand secured here for you. It's a fantastic deal. And they were reluctant to buy it. At the time, I couldn't understand why they're not buying. But they were fearful that actually we hadn't hit the bottom of the market. And what they were waiting for was wait till we hit the bottom.
Yeah.
I know now, but I didn't know at the time. How are we going to know when we're at the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
We can look back now and pinpoint exactly when the market was at the bottom because we can look in the rearview mirror because it's after the event.
Yeah.
So right now, we can't see where we are.
No.
All we can see is there's a decline. Is it a crash or is it a correction? I'll come back to that point in a minute. But what we can see is a decline. So there are some people saying, you know what, I'm just going to need to wait now until it settles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once it settles, you've missed the opportunity because it'll have already happened. So my view is the deal needs to work now on its numbers, and that's fine. And, if there's a further drop or whatever, that's fine. We can absorb, we can sit on it or whatever it needs to be, as long as we build that into it. And if it starts to recover, that's fine. We've done very well out of it. So the deal needs to work on its own merits right now, and there is more deals now than there was last year, the year before, even the year before that, probably, I believe. And I think we'll have a really good opportunity, over the next year or so. In fact, I've been saying to people, look, I reckon we'll probably make more money in the next 17 months than I did over the last 17 years,
Yeah.
because we've got the skills that we've built up over that time and we understand the market better. We'd be stupid not to make money now
And you got a bit of
in this
capital
market.
there waiting as well,
Yeah,
no?
and we've got great relations with people that sit on capital. We've got funds as well that we can jump on stuff very quickly. And I'm, one if there's one thing I uh, can emphasize is the relationship building, is making sure you're always building relationships, because sometimes somebody will ring me. In fact, I had a call from somebody. She said, "You might not remember me. We met about 12, 13 years ago." Because I'm looking to sell my house in Birmingham. Would you be interested? And I'm like, it just made me think that actually the connections you developed along the way, people even remembered that far
Hmm.
back. And she was an investor, and she lives outside of Birmingham. Um, just coming back to the whether we're in a crash or a correction, what's your thoughts?
I don't think we've completely crashed. I still think it's happening.
Hmm.
There's another increase that's just happened now. We
Yeah,
wasn't sure if there was going to be another increase
yeah,
or not. It was a borderline, and they have. And I feel the pinch when my electric bill goes
yeah, yeah.
up and the council tax, and then there's all this food shopping coming home. I'm feeling it. So, what's an average person feeling
Mm,
like? And if people have fixed in at 1 or 2% a few years ago, and now they're sitting on a standard variable rate, hoping that things are going to get better, and it's just got a little bit worse,
mm,
is that enough just to tip them over now? And I think we're going to have to see in the next
yeah,
quarter.
yeah,
I think the next quarter will tell us a lot about which direction we're going.
yes,
And I'm finding it hard to believe how buoyant people have kept it, and it's been quite good because I haven't seen too many deals. I mean, the thing is, I've had 1 or 2 auction companies ring me, and that
mm,
doesn't happen. It's always
interesting.
gone. Even
Yeah,
today, something was 1.2 million. It was 3 flats and a
hmm,
commercial at the bottom, not far from Liverpool Street. Gold stock is what I call it. And I was going to make an offer yesterday. I went, let me take the risk and let it go through the
yeah,
auction. Went through the auction, didn't sell.
yes,
So I called
interesting.
up and I went, how much does she want for it? And it had a guide price 1.2. And it goes 1.2. I went,
Hmm.
okay, so how much does she want for it? 1.2.
Hmm.
She doesn't need to sell. Why she put it in an auction for
Yeah,
a quick sale
exactly.
then? Why she put it there in the auction? It's got a guide price. No one in the room has been prepared to pay 1.2
Yes.
million. Will you take 1,050,000? Oh, I think that's a very long shot. And they're still playing this
Yeah,
game. I'm
yeah, yeah.
like, if you want to play games, I've seen this 2 years ago in the
Mhm.
market. Oh, it was priced a lot higher then. I said, well, I don't know if she bloody wants to
Yeah.
sell or not. So it's a bit of a cat and mouse. Of course, if they offered it for 1,050,000 or 1.1 would be my top. I probably would pounce on it. I
Mm,
said, let's make this deal happen. Let's go for it. But, you know, um, because as you said, the deal works now. I can pay my commercial loan or split it, get a
yeah.
semi-commercial, put the commercial on a different title and put the residential on another one and get a multi-let sort of mortgage on it. I know what I can do with it and how I will achieve my money out of
Yes.
this. Quickly put it on a bridge, split it, and get refinance it, and I'll be able to get a little bit of money out of it. But and I'm okay with that because I'll fix it for a period. And I know by the time all of this storm is
Mhm.
over and done with, interest rates will come back
Settle.
down
Yeah.
and house prices will increase again
Yes.
because there'll be buyers back in the market. And it's just the nature of the
Yes.
cycle. But as you said, the deal has to work now for you. And at 1.2, it
Mm,
doesn't. So you have to say no.
yes.
And if you lose it, it's okay.
Yes.
There's always another bus waiting
Yeah.
just down the road. There'll always be
It's
something.
having that abundant mindset and having the confidence that actually, you know what, it's fine. If it doesn't work, it's no problem.
And
I'll
this
find something
and
else.
there's always another deal down the
Yes.
road, right? How many
Absolutely.
times, like my second deal, I paid for a survey, 700 quid, and it had a crack on the flank wall, which is the
Okay.
side wall. And the broker said that, and I was like, "Can you get this fixed? Can you get it
Mm,
fixed?" And the broker goes, "Hang on, hang on, hang on. Before you ask them anything,
mhm,
are you sure you want to buy this
mm,
property? It's got a crack on the bloody main wall. this might give you. And I was like, but I've just paid £700. I'm committed
Yeah,
now, and
it's
I've
because
shook
you're
on the deal.
emotionally,
Yeah,
you're much more involved.
exactly.
So, and it's very easy to do when we are looking for one deal. I have conversations with people all the time. So, look at this one deal and stuff, and it's how's it going on. I'm speaking to them weeks later. I'm still looking on. We're trying to do it. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. You're either doing it or you're not doing it, and you need to move on. But you get so emotionally involved. It's like, when you're selling property and the buyer comes in, they've already worked out where the sofa's going to go, the TV's going to go on that wall. They've emotionally already bought it.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing as investors, which I think is a huge mistake because for us, it just should be numbers.
Just numbers.
It's stock. And we should think about it in numbers. We shouldn't get emotionally attached to these properties. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we should have a pipeline and stuff. And that's where we'll feel the abundance because it doesn't matter. There'll be something else come along. And, as I said so many times, stuff has come back to us months later, a year later even. And it's fine. It might come back to us later. We're talking about the market crashings. It's interesting. I don't think personally we'll have a crash.
No.
Because my view is, before we went into lockdown, it looked like that we were going to have an economic meltdown. In fact, I had a massive bridge at 2 million quid.
Wow.
Where there was no breach on my part, but the lenders get really nervous on me. And when that was happening, it was making me think, actually, are we going to be going into another financial meltdown? And there was so much uncertainty at the time. Nobody knew what was going on.
No.
And what happened was the person managing the country's money insisted that he was not going to let the country fail, Rishi. And now he's in charge of the country. He did everything at that time he possibly could to prevent an economic meltdown. And I think there's no way he's going to let that happen on his watch now. I think there's just too much at stake that, yes, we'll have a slowdown.
Yeah.
Market will slow, a bit more of a correction. What's the difference between a correction and a crash? Well, a crash is deep and it's fast, where a correction is slower and it's not so deep in terms of price drops. So I think, yes, there is going to be softening in the market and that will present opportunities because as soon as there's softening, people just run for the hills. That's fine. There's just more for everybody else like us.
Yeah. A lot of people are going into commercial conversions to residential. And it feels like every man and his dog wants to go that direction.
It's the flavor of the month.
It is. Well, yeah, more than the month. It's like everybody goes, I want a commercial, want to make it into a residential. What is the square footage? 37 square, for like square meters, and I'm going to do this, etc. What's your thoughts on that?
I think what I have seen over the years as just within the property space and also somebody that teaches and supported people over quite a few years as well, that you'll have certain strategies and models that become trendy. And the reason they become trendy, there might be some change that happens in the market. So let's say the prior approval from some of the prior approval rights have come about recently. So there's a little bit of quirk, there's some advantage there. And then lots of people talk about it as this is the next best thing since sliced bread. And that's fine. But because there's so much marketing going on around this is the thing, everybody just wants to go that way.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with service accommodation, we've seen it with lease option, we've seen it with HMOs, we've seen it with rent to rent. They're just, what's the current flavor right now? What's the thing that everybody's interested in? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these strategies, but I'm saying this is what I think so many people want to do it because they've just seen somebody else do it. This is exactly the mistakes I was making at the beginning when I started. I'd be sitting at a networking event, somebody's talking about, hey, look, I do HMOs and this and that, and we make £1,000 on this. I'm thinking, £1,000. If I have 2 of those, my life would be changed completely. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking, how can I possibly get 2 of those? And then, a week later, I'd be sitting at another networking event, and somebody be talking about, hey, look, we buy houses for £1. These options, and I'm thinking, I've got 10 quid, I can buy 10 houses. Show me how to buy 10 houses. And a couple of weeks later, then somebody else will be talking about no money down. I'm thinking, now I can buy houses for free. That's a strategy for me. Yeah. We just kind of follow whatever somebody else has done or talking about. We think that's the thing for us. I think that's a huge mistake because with a strategy, we should think about how much time we got, how much money we got, what skill we got that's transferable. We could maybe get to work in that particular strategy where we base geographically. in terms of what money could we tap into.
Yeah.
All of these things will impact your ability to do a certain strategy. But what we look at is somebody else's results and use that as the reason we want to do the strategy.
Hmm.
Somebody's made £1 million doing X. Well, that's the one for me. I that's what I need to do. As opposed to, well, actually, that person is based in a certain geographic location, which means actually there's certain nuances that works well there.
Hmm.
That person has a certain skill set or access to certain things, which makes that strategy easier for them. Or it's the iceberg effect, is where you're seeing the tip of his result, but you haven't seen the 10 years of pain behind it. That's under the water. But we just get attracted by the glitz,
Yes.
and I think that's a big mistake in our industry. People formulate strategy based on what they've seen somebody else, as opposed to is it the right one for them.
Yeah, true. I want to ask you something a little bit off topic. There's a
Sure.
lot of influencers in this property space. You've got Samuel Leeds, for example. The guy at the event the other day, what was his name again? He's
Oh, Rob
Rob.
Moore.
You got Rob
Yeah,
Moore. You got Steve
yeah,
Hamilton. You got Jason Patterson. You got loads of these
yes.
names. Is there any that's your favorite, or you get along with, or you
I,
speak
I
to?
actually, I think very early I learned in the property space, people are just very open, and helpful, and I just want to be everyone's friend, in the sense that I don't like falling out with anybody. There's no reason to. Life is too short. Sometimes there's been many times you deal with somebody. You know what? And I'm a trusting person in the sense that if someone says we can do something, I say that's fine. We don't put contract, nothing. It's fine. We've agreed to it. We're committed to it. I'm old school like that. We shook on it. Deal's done. My word is my bond. That's it. We're doing it.
Yeah,
And there's been many a time that that's backfired. I've got my fingers burnt. Someone screwed me over, and I think that's fine. You'll only do it once.
mm,
We're never doing business again.
that's it.
Do you know what I mean? Or that's fine. If you took advantage of me in that situation, okay, you gained in that one moment,
Yeah,
but you've probably burnt your bridge for something quite substantial we could have done in the future.
100.
So I tend to get on with most people. I don't really fall out with anybody, and it's so what is an influencer? It comes back to what we were talking about earlier on about it's building a brand, isn't it? So an influencer, or I mean, I'm not a big fan of that particular phrase, but essentially what we mean is somebody that's got an audience, somebody that has hundreds or thousands of followers that look up to what they do or watch what they do or observe what they do, and that means they've got a degree of influence over that audience. I said because I don't think that's the correct phrase, but that's generally the label we tend to use, and that also then means that some people will try to leverage social media to create a perception that doesn't really exist. So there'll be some people that be doing something for 5 minutes and then they're selling a course. Good luck to them. But be transparent about what you're doing. Um, and there's some people that are absolutely brilliant at doing a certain thing, and they've done it from day dot,
Mhm.
but they're just not that great at putting themselves out there or selling themselves online. And they're just they don't have much of a following. But in my mind, they're the real experts. They're the
Yeah,
person I pick up the phone to,
yeah,
not the person who's been doing it for 5 minutes.
yeah, exactly.
But we live in this world of social media, which is a window into somebody's life,
Yeah,
but you choose to control what's being put out there.
yes,
So if you Google your name, what does it say? And is it correct? Well, actually, it's not that difficult for you to decide what Google says about you. And that comes back to what we were talking earlier about branding. And you should be in control of what is it you want to do, how you want to be seen. And yes, some people will use that in a way where they, for lack of a better word, let's say manipulate that situation. So we need to be aware that social media isn't a true reflection of somebody and their life necessarily. Um, I view it as a way of people getting to know, like, and trust me, which means whenever we meet, it'll be easy if we ever do business together
broken the ice a little bit.
because they might have spent 10 hours watching me on the screen.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I'm just wary of time. We've only got a couple of minutes left.
Sure.
Just wanted to ask, is there a question you wish I asked you?
I think you've been amazing. I don't think I've ever done a podcast this long and talk about stuff this thing. And normally, I think I tend to do more listening than talking.
No, you're
So I think
very
you've asked some great questions, and hopefully, I've been able to add value. And I guess a few takeaways are that I've learned and got these grey hairs from that. Relationships are absolutely key. Doesn't matter who somebody is. Value everybody. Think about how you can help and serve somebody else rather than thinking what's in it for you, because it will just come when you have that mindset.
definitely. You've shared an immense amount that you don't have to be the sharpest tool in the box. You
No.
wasn't that great at university, etc. You had businesses that failed before this, but the thing is that you persevered. You stuck to something that you really wanted. You formed good relationships along your journey. You spoke to people, and you made things happen. And even when things went wrong, like insulation on some of the projects, you still carried on and took on losses and said, look, I'm
Mm.
accountable for this, which helped your credibility when people were working with you, which I believe is, this is the
Mm.
reputation that you're upholding. And I think a lot of people need to listen to this and remember that your reputation is very, very important. It takes years and years to build, and in a second you
Yes.
can just destroy everything. And is it really worth it? Don't just think about that 1 minute, how much you're going to make. Think about how much you're losing and how many deals
Mm.
you're going to be missing out on. And I really resonate with everything that you've said, because my granddad's always taught me the same way. He's like, your your word is your bond. Is
Yes.
even stronger than what the solicitors write, because you've said it and you've shook their hands. If you come back on this word, how many people is that person gonna tell? And when a deal actually does come through the door, "Oh, don't deal with him, he'll mess the deal up." So it's been absolutely brilliant. I've learned so much more about you, and I have even more respect for
Oh,
you,
thank you.
because you articulate yourself with so much experience and you explain things very clearly. So, Saj, if you just look straight into the camera and just let my audience know how they can follow you.
Well, thank you so much. You can just reach out to me on any platform on social media. It's either the Saj Hussain or just Saj Hussain.
There we go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I know sometimes we got off topic and we get some MMA fighters and solicitors, and boy, have I got more installed for you. But this is where we're experts at, and I occasionally like to bring it back to say, look, if you like property, if you like this space, there are experts in this field to help you on that journey. And I love to share all of, my friends within this circle. So don't forget to like, share, smash the bell button so you never miss another one, and leave us a comment. Leave Saj a comment. I'll ask him for you. Yeah. So I'll see you on the next one. Peace.